Welcome to the Wellness Rebel Show, where you reclaim your health and tap into your body's healing power. I'm your host, Fatima, here to empower you with the knowledge and tools to take charge of your well-being. Whether you want to boost energy, improve mindset, or unlock vitality, this is your go-to source for practical advice and inspiration. It's time to step into your power and live a life of health and freedom. Welcome to the revolution. Hello, everyone. Today I have Chef Mollie with me. I don't know if you know about her, but she owns Kind Sage Restaurant. It used to be a vegan restaurant, and now she's made the switch. And she's gonna share all about that here today and all things holistic living. Hi, Chef Mollie. Thanks for
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. All right, so why don't you tell us about your journey from, like having that vegan restaurant and then switching it up and all the things that you went through when you made the switch?
Yeah, my mom is a vegetarian to this day. I was born in a vegetarian womb. My mother doesn't eat meat, and I just kind of adopted that lifestyle, and I believed that was the best pathway forward. I grew up in upstate New York. I was very kind of influenced by the current environmental construct around eating meat. And so I never ate meat. It just didn't make sense. And then I started an ice cream shop. It was a vegan ice cream shop. And then I expanded into doing restaurants. And I was very successful, like wildly successful. Some of the first big footprint vegan restaurants with full bar and really like a restaurant with nothing missing, although there was no meat and dairy. So, organic bourbon and whiskey and beer, and you could get a pizza for your kid, but you could get a kale salad and a green juice for, mom, and you could get a fried macaroni and cheese ball for what, like, it really was like food with nothing missing. People could have whatever kind of experience they wanted. And it was wildly successful. And I worked super hard every day. I didn't have my first child till I was 37 years old. And I went right back to work after a super hard birth and, tied my baby onto me and went back and was working. And then I did that all the way until my next baby was born, and then, got some help in the restaurant so I could hand the baby off and two babies and breastfeed and work and all of it. And I spent so much time working. And in 2020, so in 2018, I decided to buy a farm, or in 2013, I decided to buy a farm after listening to this regenerative podcast from Graham Sate. And my brother had started the nonprofit Kiss the Ground. And so I got very interested in soil and regenerative agriculture. And I realized through the information I was being exposed to that the number one bad thing that was happening for the environment was actually methane, and that was coming from food waste. And I realized that our restaurant was causing tons of food waste. So in 2013, I started to want to buy a farm. It took many years to save the money and realize I was first thinking someone else would buy it and I could just bring my compost and like collaborate, and didn't find someone. 2018, me and my husband bought our farm. I was still staunchly vegan, and I thought I could do regenerative agriculture and nothing would ever die. I thought that was what was possible. And through a series of events and through getting more connected to nature, I realized nature doesn't lie, and that there is no food without death. And there is no vegan food, that all food is consuming death, and that we have to have the reverence for whatever food, whether it's a broccoli or a T-bone. We have to have the same reverence as for all of God's creatures that died for that to come to be, because the broccoli didn't grow without death. And that was, I just started to realize, oh, well, what is organic fertilizer? It's blood meal, it's bone meal, it's feather meal, it's chicken poop and cow poop coming out of the consolidated feedlot system, which is a system of death. And then I had some other experiences I had some ducks that I didn't kill any ducks, and there got to be too many male ducks, and the male ducks raped all the female ducks to death or humped them to death. And I was devastated that I had made a decision. And I realized, and then my neighbor's dog killed all of our sheep in one night. And my husband just like jumped into, man mode, and he harvested all of that sheep before it went bad and gave it out to all of the farm workers and all of our community. And I realized through the ducks and the dogs killing the sheep and my husband saving all of that nutrients and giving it to families that were really in need, all of these things kind of added up to me realizing that nature is far more brutal than we are. There's not this like beautiful nature where nothing dies, and then humans are this plague on the planet that are killing everything and we're bad. That is first not true. And that every bite of food revolves around some death. And then my next big awakening was I'm breastfeeding my second child, and I'm sitting there, and we got a cow. Her name was Una. Her name is still Una. She's still with us. And she was our first cow, and she was pregnant when we got her. And she has a huge udder, like it's just crazy big. And so her calf could not drink all the milk. So she's getting mastitis in some quarters, and we're milking off her milk. And then I'm buying oat milk from Costco for my kids, and then my older kid, and I'm breastfeeding, and I'm like, yeah, breastfeeding is the best. Like, I'm so good of a mom because I'm breastfeeding. And then I'm like thinking like, so if my breast milk is gold, it's like going to cause this child to have higher IQ and higher, ability to fight off allergies and all of these different things, and better immune system for the rest of their life. And my breast milk is in this environment, has the specific antidotes to the pathogens in this environment. Well, wouldn't Una's breast milk have that same magic power? And isn't Una in my same environment, but a dirtier version of my environment? So why would I want to feed my kids sterile oat milk, likely with glyphosate in it, from Costco, rather than this raw milk from my cow that has more than enough to feed her baby and mine? She makes 7 gallons of milk a day, yeah. Una. So in this mindset, all these things are making sense. And I'm thinking, and my husband eats meat. My husband's Mexican, indigenous from Mexico, and he's eating meat. He's going to eat barbacoa. He's going to eat tacos de cabeza. He's going to eat all this stuff, and he's going to buy the meat at the store. And then I'm going to like sell my male sheep on Craigslist and tell people, please keep it as a pet. Like, this is kind of not making any sense. And so through all of this realization, I just realized that animals are our partners in land management, and their sacrifice, that farm animals sacrifice for humanity, is this highly nutrient dense food that is available for my family. And so why should my husband be buying food from the store, and then I'm trading a bull calf for hay because I don't want to sell it and I don't want to kill it? But literally someone else is going to kill that steer. Like, what? There's no other, a male dairy cow has no other purpose in this world but to either be killed young as veal, or God willing, they get to grow up for 2.5 years and then be harvested for meat. And so when I'm giving away this steer calf in exchange for hay to the feed store, like the feed store is going to sell it to someone and someone's going to eat it. And so none of it had any integrity. None of it was real. And so I changed my mind. But at the moment I changed my mind, my restaurants were in a deal for $25 million to sell them. And I had spent thousands of hours away from my children, and I was pregnant with my third child, and I was 41 years old, and I thought, I'm going to get to retire and be a full-time mom. This is the best of both worlds. I worked super hard, and now I'm going to get to be a mom, and I'm going to sell my businesses, and I'll do a regenerative farm. I'll do a regenerative restaurant later, but there's no reason to rock the boat right now. But I no longer aligned with eating seed oils. I no longer aligned with the vegan diet was the pathway for the planet. I no longer aligned with those stories. I did align with no chemicals, with, only whole foods. I never have served any fake meats or anything like that in my restaurants. And
Mhm.
California closed my whole life. They closed my restaurants for 2 years and 4 months. And that deal went away. And my restaurants just closed one after another because there wasn't enough money to pay bills. So it went from this super successful thing, making millions of dollars, to going out of business. And I had 2 stores left, and we were going to close them at the beginning of this year. And I thought, you know what? I want to just try to do what I think has integrity. And so I tried to find an investor that would help me rebrand the restaurant, and I couldn't find anybody. So I just decided to do it, throw my hat over the fence and try to create this other concept. And the response has been lackluster on the supporters, and the response has been really negative from the vegans. And so it's been really sad because I don't know if my restaurants will be able to survive. It looks at this moment like they will not. And I really did do what I believe is right. And I had hoped that for every vegan that was upset, there'd be 5 moms that was so excited to be able to get a raw milk latte and tallow fries and a venison patty melt with A2 cheese and house-made kimchi on long fermented sourdough bread. Like, I thought my people would come out in droves, like the natural home birth having, tallow fry eating, raw milk drinking, disgruntled by the pandemic mamas were going to come out in droves. But unfortunately, it has not gone that way. And our sales are down from where they were when we were already not surviving as a vegan restaurant. And so, yeah, that's the story. That was a long intro.
No, that was still very eye-opening. So you have how many restaurants do you have left open right now? How many restaurants do you have open right now?
2 in California and 1 in Texas on my ranch.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I went to the one in Pasadena when we were on our way home from Escondido back in June. And I was very excited to go there because it's hard to find restaurants that truly, care about the food they're serving their customers.
It's almost
So I
impossible.
was very excited to eat there.
It's
Yeah,
almost
it is.
impossible.
Every
The
time you go to a
restaurant
restaurant,
business,
it's a Cisco truck. Yeah.
yes. And I would say that it's, I was just talking to my landlord because I'm behind on the rent in Pasadena earlier today. And she's going, well, you should be able to be making money. And I'm going, I understand in whatever paradigm you're looking through that I should be able to be making money. And I'm not behind on the rent because I'm just stockpiling like money to buy toys for my kids for Christmas. Like, the restaurants have not paid me in 2 years. This is not about like, there's just, in order for me to break even currently the way it is, I would need to raise prices $5. I don't think the consumer public can handle a $5 price increase. But the reality of eating food that is in alignment with what you want, it's
Mhm.
just more expensive than people think. And then there's nothing to compare it to. So people are going, well, there's this grass-fed burger over here. And I said, I have no idea about that grass-fed burger, but and then we're doing regenerative flour on a long fermented dough, like bun, or long fermented sourdough bread on a patty melt. And it's the flour is from a regenerative farm. The meat is from a regenerative farm. The cabbage and the kimchi is from a regenerative farm. Like, all of that is on a level that doesn't exist. And I am already getting pushback
Yeah.
about the prices, and we've done the math. And in order for me to stay open, I need to raise the prices $5. And I just don't see the consumer wanting that. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, yeah. I know, like, I feel like there's more, um I would say, kind of education surrounding, like regenerative farming and the cost of actually raising these animals to get from farm to table, so that people see, like, they don't say, "Oh, I'll just eat a cheesecake because they have 100% grass-fed beef," but they don't know that 100% grass-fed beef is still fed grain at the end of their life, because the labeling laws here in the
Yeah,
United
it doesn't,
States
unless
suck.
it doesn't say grass fed, grass finished, but if you could,
Yeah,
but there's all different ways too. It's like, it's, if it's not pasture. So yeah, because grass fed can also be like shredded corn as silage. And so,
yeah,
there's so many ways.
yeah, yeah.
And it's all beef is grass fed. There's no beef, like, just for an educational
Hmm.
standpoint. If you buy beef that says corn
Yeah.
fed, which I don't know if anybody says that, it only means that somewhere between 18
No.
months and 2.5 years, it started getting fed grain. But for the first 18 months to two
Yeah,
and a half years, it was only eating grass. That's true for all cows. Like, nobody's raising cattle and starting to feed them grain from a very young age. It's just not happening. I live in Texas. This is cow calf country. Everybody has a cow calf operation. People in this part of the world have their calves in January. Right now, in November, they sell the calves to auction. They're 9 months old, and then they go somewhere else to be fed out, and they will
yeah,
probably likely be on grass. They'll be stockers on grass somewhere else, and then they'll be put into processing. But all of that is, everybody's grass fed, and the mamas that eventually also turn into meat
hmm,
are going to be on grass for 10, 15 years. Like, everybody's on grass. It's just, how are they finished?
yeah,
What is the grass? Is the grass being sprayed? There's so much more to it than that. And so when I'm like having a bison burger that's like a regenerative bison burger, that's a very different thing. Or wild harvested venison,
yeah,
wild harvested antelope.
yeah, totally.
So
And I think that more we just need to kind of get that word out there, right? Like, there's so much more to regenerative farming and pasture raised animals, and what's the difference between pasture raised, like 100% pasture raised, 100% grass fed and finished, right? Compared to like these just 100% grass fed beef. Because,
yeah,
like you
and there's so
said,
much better
even if they're
nutrient.
fed grain,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, oh no,
Even
go
though
ahead.
if there's nutrient density differences, even in the regenerative produce. Like, I know a guy who's doing citrus in Florida, regenerative citrus, and he's doing it mail order, but he was up against, like, I'm $10. And of course the cost of production will go down as the trees get bigger, but he's $10 a pound into his production. But there's some things have 36 times more the nutrients. So you would need to eat 10 oranges from the neighbor to get the same amount of nutrients that's in his oranges. And when you look at the picture of his oranges versus the neighbor's oranges, it's a totally different color. Like, even though they're grown in the same part of the country on the same everything, he's doing the regenerative practices and they're not. And so there's so many
Yeah,
differences. It's not just about animal welfare. It's not just about nutrient density. It's not just about carbon sequestration and soil health. It's not just about, ecosystems and keeping them healthy. I mean, it's about all of that combined. And so it's a health and wellness commitment. It's an environmental commitment. It's a commitment to clean water and clean air for our future. It's a commitment, to the animal welfare and how animals are being treated. And it's a commitment to the small farm having a future in a very commoditized system. And so I think all of that is really important. And we can't just look at it from one viewpoint.
yeah, Totally. So remind me, did you buy your ranch in Texas in 2021?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I bought it in 20, just going 20. Well, we opened escrow in 2021 and then we closed escrow in January 2022. And
Okay.
it was after the pandemic policies in California. And I was pregnant and breastfeeding, not vaccinated, not being allowed to go pee at restaurants, like not being, oh, can I use your restroom? No, ma'am. If you don't have a vaccine card, you cannot. And I just thought, I don't want to live in a state where a 17-year-old would deny a 40-something-year-old woman that's 6 months pregnant access to a restroom. Like it just is like, ugh,
Yeah.
ugh.
Right.
And
I know.
what? And
I
so
said I
I
know.
knew
It's crazy that yeah.
that that's the world. No, my own employees called OSHA and the health department on me saying that um, I was causing an unsafe work environment by being not vaccinated in my own restaurant.
Oh wow. Yeah. Fear can make people do unreasonable things.
Yes, it did. We proved that. And it's proving again, people are right now terrified of what's to come. And, it's
Yeah.
the conversation around fear. And I like to say that we're all co creating reality. Like we're all, our thought, speech, beliefs, actions, and attitudes are expressing as creation, as we're co creating as God's creatures. And so if we're in a fear consciousness, we're co-creating more fear, more anxiety, more. And so I think it's super important that we look at how can I manage my feelings in such a way that I'm creating more peace and more abundance and more positivity than more negativity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. How do we do that?
Say it again.
Technical difficulties. Let's see. Is it coming up? Yeah. Let me try to see if I'm. Let's see. How about now?
I can hear you so
Is
far,
that better?
but the
Okay.
picture is the same.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how we can change, the way we perceive things and all that stuff so that we're not acting in that fear state?
Yeah, I try to just believe that we're meant to be here and the experiences that we're experiencing, my soul already signed up for, like prior to being here. Like I chose these experiences for whatever lesson and to try to be grateful that I'm here at this moment and this is what my soul needs in order to express or know more of myself, know more of God is one thing. And the other thing is, and it's going to sound so corny, but just being grateful. If whenever I'm spinning, and there's been a lot of spinning recently with what's going on with the restaurants and everything, and a lot of fear, whenever that's happening, I just go into being grateful and I just start with my husband and my children and move outward from there. And just to, it calms my mind and can bring me back to my heart and back to my center. And also being in the now moment. Most of our fear comes from something that could or may happen in the future rather than our experience of reality right now. And so I sometimes when I'm spinning and anxiety and like, I say, what's happening right now? And usually nothing is happening right now. Someone has just indicated there's some future that's possible
That's
that I don't
beautiful.
like.
I love it.
And the truth is, we've all had futures that we don't like. I lost my best friend at 37 years old to cancer. And we know that you'll get past every bad thing that's ever happened to us. It turned out okay, or we died. And so if we're dead, then that's not, but literally everything always turns out. I didn't think I could go on without my best friend. We started our restaurant together. We did everything together. It was our restaurant. It was our ice cream shop before the restaurant. And to go on without her seemed impossible. But somehow I did. And so I believe that everything is overcomeable. Everything you can overcome. And so we don't have to live out there in the bad thing that's going to happen, because if that's going to happen, it's going to happen, and we can experience it on that day. But just stay present in the moment. Take action to have the future that you want, but don't live in that what could or couldn't happen in the future. And I for sure have friends that are having a baby, and they come to me and they're like, what is it going to be like? What is labor going to be like? Am I going to poop on myself? And I always tell them, stop, just stop. It's going to go however it's going to go. There's no way to know. Every birth story is different, and every birth story is the same. It's a massive amount of surrender, and none of it's going to matter. You poop on yourself, you have a tear, you have to, like, none of it's going to matter in the end, because you're going to have a child, hopefully. And but all that will matter in those moments that you're worried that you're going to tear, that worried that you're going to poop on yourself, worried about these things, like literally the only thing that will matter at that moment is getting the baby out. And so, and labor is a really good example, because as though it's the most intense that we ever have almost in our life, afterwards it doesn't occur like trauma. It doesn't occur like the worst thing that's ever happened to us. And so everything that's going to come, it can come, and you can let it wash over you like a wave, but you don't have to imagine that wave crashing on you every second leading up to that wave. And so staying in the now moment and being grateful and managing your own mind, those are my tips.
Those are great tips. I love that. I always also remind my clients, always have gratitude, even my kids, right? Because sometimes we're so consumed with thinking about what's ahead, and then we forget what we actually have right now in this moment. So I love that. All right, let's move on. Can you share, you know, tidbits or whatever you feel comfortable sharing about your births?
Yeah. I have 4 biological children, and I had 3 births at home and 1 failed birth at home. My first child, I was one of those righteous women who thought, uh, my body's been made to do this forever, and, and nobody needs a C-section, and nobody needs, I'm going to be just fine. And I got a midwife, and I was going to have a home birth, and I was determined not to go to the hospital. There was, the sky would have had to have been falling. And my midwife said, you have to go to the hospital after several days. And I did not want to. And I was very resistant. But in the end, the truth is I would have died. I had a coccyx bone that was healed. Instead of your tailbone being down like this, it had healed inward towards the vagina. And so the baby's head just kept hitting the bone, and the bone kept hitting me in the butt. And so I kept clenching up.
Yeah.
And so I was at 0 centimeters and having contractions every 2 minutes. So I did get all the interventions with the exception of a C-section. I had a epidural, and then they needed to give me Pitocin, and then then my midwife turned off the epidural, because she didn't want me to get C-section, but nobody knew. Actually, I don't know if I should say that part. Anyways, for somehow my thing got turned off. And so the doctor, when he finally discovered that my coccyx bone was broken, was in the way, and he had to episiotomy and break my coccyx bone, he thought that I had a epidural going, and I did not. And so that was hard. And then I, he was so far up and he had tried to get around the coccyx bone that he had got asynclitic and his shoulder was in the, and then all of a sudden there was meconium, and then all of a sudden there was a NICU unit, and then there was a C-section unit in the room. And the doctor was like, look, I'm going to get the vacuum and you have 3 pop-offs. And if you don't get it all out in 3 pop-offs, it can cause brain damage. And I was so tired. It had been days and days, and I had been pushing against a bone, which was just terrible. And I did not want a C-section because they said they were going to have to push him all the way back up inside me to C-section me. So all that progress that had taken days, they were going to push him back upside and C-section him. So in the first pull with the vacuum, I got him out. His head was so messed up. We didn't take a picture, and I wish that we had now, but at the time it looked so messed up. Everybody just put a hat on it and was like, let's not, nobody look at that. But he had one cone going in one direction from being stuck in the birth canal, and another cone going the other direction from the vacuum pulling him. And then he still has a scar right here from the vacuum. Cut him. So that was my first birth. And then I had all the rest of my 3 babies, like within a couple, labor started and 3 hours later I have a baby, or 5 hours later I have a baby, or 4 hours later have a baby at home in my bed or in my bathroom. And, just super easy peasy. And I would wish for every woman to have the experience to have a home birth. It is the closest that we'll be to God in our whole lifetime, and to do it without drugs, in your own container, with your own family, with your people that you love, with your own sheets and your own food, and no weird chemicals and weird people, is just the best experience that anybody could have. And so I wish for every woman that has the willpower and the strength and the ability to do that, please do it. It's the best of the best of the best. And I'm so grateful that those doctors were able to save my life and my son's life. And I don't wish that on anybody. I don't wish that hospital birth, that checking if you've pooped, that coming in every 2 minutes and telling you can't sleep with the baby on your boob. And I've been sleeping with a baby on my boob for 10 years straight. I don't know what you think. So I hated a hospital birth, but I was grateful for it.
Yeah.
And I believe that medical interventions are there in emergency situations. And I believe that birth can become an emergency situation. It always has been a possibility to become an emergency situation. So I'm grateful for that. But I don't want that unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah. And they do say, I don't know if you've heard it, like they
Wait,
say,
one more funny thing.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go first.
No, there was a delay, so I didn't know I was talking over you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how they also say birth, like it's kind of like a 50-50 chance for either the baby or the mother, whether they're going to survive, or it's like a gateway to death almost, right? And so you're right. Sometimes it can become an emergency, and we're very grateful for medical interventions when it's needed, right? We shouldn't treat birth as this
Yes.
medical emergency just because we're giving birth.
No, of course not. Only when it is a medical emergency should we.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there with the free birthers, and they just want to birth with nobody. And my mom just had a woman that lives on her farm doing a free birth, and the baby died, and the baby was breech, and nobody knew what was going on. And there was no elder to say, it doesn't have to be a midwife. But it has to be someone who has extensive experience with birth to know when it's time to say, this is an emergency. Because if you're a first time mother,
Yeah.
you've been told labor is the worst and most painful thing you're ever going to experience. And so, however painful it is, you don't have a context. However, you don't
Yeah.
have a context for something is wrong. I was like, no, I can just suffer through. Literally, I couldn't. There was nothing to suffer through. Like the baby was blocked from coming out by a bone,
Yeah.
you know? And so this woman, her baby died because just a couple weeks ago, because she didn't have an elder there. So I'm all for people birthing however they want, but I think it's important that women support women and that there is elders in the community that can be there, especially for first time mothers, to say, so this is abnormal, and it's time for us to go. Somebody that can feel if you need them to, and say, hey, there's butt and feet right here, not a head. We have to go. Like that has to be part of it. And I'm all for free birth. I'm all for that. But I do think that we also need to have elders, have people. And 9 times out of 10, everything is going to be okay. But I think that the elder or the birth keeper or the midwife's job is to be there in that 1 time out of 10 when, and sometimes the intervention can just be something that they can do right there. It doesn't necessarily even need to be a hospital, but
Yeah.
I think it's important that you have that person that you can rely on. And I was just thinking this the other day, if I got pregnant again, which I'm sure you guys are thinking is crazy. I'm 46 years old, but I just had a baby. So I guess it is possible. But
It's
I was thinking,
possible.
my midwife's in California. What would I do? Would I just free birth, or would I have a midwife from here that I've never met before? Like I had all my kids with the same midwife. I think she'd have to
Yeah.
fly here. She would hate it, but she would have to fly here. But I even though I feel totally confident that me and my husband could do it on our own at this point, I still think it's important to have a person there that is a third party that has no emotional to say this is what's going on. Because yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
But I will never want to have another
Yeah. That.
hospital birth. Even if I was pregnant with twins, I think I would want to pay for the doctor, like when you can pay a doctor to do it at home. But I don't know if in Texas you
Mhm.
can have twins at home. In California you can, but you have to have you have to have a OB in attendance.
Yeah.
But
There's
anyway,
definitely a lot of red tape around, like the higher risk births that they consider, like twins. Because sometimes if you do have a midwife that knows what they're doing, you can still birth at home even when the baby's breech, right? But you just have to have that
yes.
person who has experience doing it to do it safely.
Yes, and this woman didn't know the
Who's your
baby was
midwife in
breech because she was
California?
doing everything all natural. My midwife in California is Push Midwifery. Her name's Robin. She's
Was that in
extraordinary.
Southern California?
Yeah, she's in Thousand
Is
Oaks.
it in Southern California? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yes, in that's in
I'm in
Southern
Northern
California.
California.
Um, she's the best of the best. But I think that we that yes, that woman probably could have had the baby safely if someone knew that the baby was breech. But when you don't know what you don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Exactly.
terrible.
Yeah.
But at one funny birth story, since that was all depressing. When I was having my son, Soul, I was in the bathtub and my mom and her twin sister had flown in from Hawaii. And my mom there was like kind of a lot of people around. And my mom was like, these other people have it. I'm going to go sew. So my mom is sewing in the sewing room, which is down below my bedroom. And she keeps hearing someone outside making fun of the noises I'm making while I'm in labor. So she keeps going outside, like, who is this not nice word, that would be making fun of my daughter while she's in labor. And she comes upstairs and she's sewing slippers, and it's November. It's November 22nd. My son's birthday is just in a week. And she's sewing slippers for people for Christmas presents. And she comes upstairs with these slippers in her hand, and I'm in the bathtub and people are around me in the bathtub. And she's like, "Who is making fun of you? This is driving me crazy." And with her slippers in her hand. And I go, "Mom, it's the birds. We have a bunch of parrots. And so the parrots were just mimicking the sound." So I'd be like, "Oh," and then the parrots would be like, "Oh," and my mom was like, "Who is making fun of her? That's so messed up." And it was just the parrots doing that.
That's so hilarious. Don't have parrots when you're laboring.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. At first I thought you were going to say, yeah. I thought you were going to say like one of the animals at your ranch was kind of like copying your sound.
Yeah, it was one of the animals, but it was a parrot. So that is a funny story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been blessed with 4 children after 37. And so I feel really grateful. I waited a long time to have children, and just so grateful that I was able to, and that I have such this large and complete family. And I'm just grateful because I was fully focused on my job in my earlier years, and I could have been a woman who just missed her opportunity, like so many of my friends. And I just am so grateful that that was not my path, and that motherhood is part of my path.
Yeah. And I love that though, that you're sharing that, because I know that there's a lot of women who feel like it's too late to have babies once they turn 35. I'm like, no, I know they consider 35 and over geriatric. How do you say it? Geriatric pregnancies, but it's definitely
Geriatric pregnancy.
Yeah, it's definitely not too late, right?
Mom. Every one of my pregnancies was a geriatric pregnancy. Every single one.
Yeah.
But
it's terrible though that they label it that way, because it's like,
yeah, because you feel like old and you question yourself. Is my body going to be strong enough, and am I going to be able to push it out? And am I physically well enough to do that? And I remember having those thoughts at the end of my last baby. I was 45. And I remember feeling like, am I going to be too weak to have the baby or whatever? But I was fine. I was easy peasy. So
yeah.
I think that if we're healthy and we're keeping our bodies clean and all of these things, I think that our fertility window is longer than we've been made to believe. Or at least mine is, because I've done no fertility treatments. I've done no tracking, nothing. I got pregnant all those times, just normal activities with my husband. No special extra effort. And so I feel really grateful that my fertility, because I think the chances at like 45 to get pregnant without intervention is like 1% or something low.
Wow. No, totally. I think our fertility is, I don't know, like not relevant. It's like related to how healthy you are, because if your body feels healthy enough to carry a baby, it will, right? You're gonna keep making babies as long as you're healthy. Your body is clean. It's not loaded with toxins. I think that I've seen women have babies even at like 53.
Yeah, I have a neighbor here. She has twins. They're 13. And she had them when she was 51 years old. She had twins, home birth. She was telling natural home birth, natural pregnancy, at 51 years old. My husband was like, 51, you're 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51. I could get at least 2 more babies out of you. That's my husband's math when he met her. But yeah, I
Why
know
not?
people in the, yeah, especially in the Christian community here in Texas, and also in the Christian community where I lived in California. I know lots of women that had babies late 48, 49, and 50. And, they had babies all along too. So I also wonder about having the babies continuously, if it keeps you more fertile. Like, I don't know, but I noticed that women that, but I also don't know, maybe we're all fertile that long, and women that have two kids at 35 and 36, they just stop trying, or they don't want to, or they take precautions. I don't know. But I do notice a lot of women, if they keep having children, it seems like they can keep having them longer. Um, for
Yeah.
sure. I had a neighbor, Serena, and she had her last one at 48, and she had 11 or something. So yeah.
Wow. Amazing. See, it's never too late, right?
Yeah. I
Never too
remember
late.
when I was 41 and pregnant. It's never too late. I mean, maybe someday it's too late, but it's not too late to try. I remember being on an airplane, and this woman, I couldn't tell how old she was necessarily, but she seemed like a 40-ish year old Black woman. And she was the flight attendant on the airplane. And she was like, "Can I ask you a question, a personal question?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she was like, how old are you? And I said, 41. That was I'm 41. I'll be 42 when the baby's born. And and then she was like this, "Giving bitches hope everywhere." And she was like, "I'm so grateful. I mean, you're giving me hope." And so I think it's awesome to tell stories about how it's possible, because then when your mind thinks it's possible, then your body will follow, is the other truth. Like, when your mind thinks it's
Yeah.
possible, your body will believe it's possible.
Right. Yeah. 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 I'm gonna be 41 when I give birth to this baby. So it's possible, guys.
Yes, that I was
Don't lose hope.
totally possible. Yeah, I was 40.
Just make sure that
Yeah,
you're
I was 41 when I gave both. No, go ahead. Sorry.
no, you go.
I don't know. We can't see the delay. I'm so
You were
sorry. We keep
41.
talking over each other.
I know.
But I was
It's
saying, just
okay.
when I was,
It's okay.
we just have to take care of our bodies, as if you are going to try to be pregnant at
Mhm.
41, 43, 45, all of these times that I was pregnant, we need to take care of ourselves, and feed ourselves the most nutrient dense food, and really care for ourselves, because it is different than having a baby at 20. It is different to carry that excess weight
Yeah,
than it is at 20.
that's
So,
right. So I'm curious, real when you started having your kids, were you already did you already switch from being vegan and already was eating meat, or do you have like a child that you were still vegan?
no, my first two children, I was still vegan.
Okay.
So I have two that I was vegan with,
And did
but
you
I'm a
find
vegetarian. I don't even really eat meat. I still don't eat
okay.
meat. I don't, even though I believe that that's the pathway forward.
Okay.
I eat dairy and eggs and a little bit of bone broth. But I haven't, like, because I went my whole life without eating meat, it's very hard for me to view it as food in the same way that
Mhm.
other people do. My husband literally just
Okay.
told me the other day that he would stop drinking if I started eating meat. So I'm very much considering eating meat, because I would like my husband to stop drinking. But I haven't, like, it doesn't resonate with me as food, because I've never eaten it as food. So I have to figure out a way to, like, ease into it if I'm going to do it. But I definitely am not looking at a steak
Yeah.
and being like, "My goodness, that looks great." But my son, the one that was vegan in the womb, literally at 2 years old, before, when I was still pressing the vegan agenda, we were at one of our farm workers' house and it was like a barbecue, and I'm sure it was not organic and whatever. And they were doing carne asada on the grill, and my son just was like, "What's that?" and just like right into his mouth. And he's a picky eater. And to this day, he just sometimes he'll be sitting there staring off into space, and he'll say, "Do you ever just wish that you could just only eat meat?" And I'm like, "No, honey, that's not what I wish, but I'm glad that you do." And he's like, "It just tastes so good." So he just was a meat eater. Like, even though I raised him, he was vegan in my belly, he all of that. And then my littlest daughter, that's 1 years old, or a little 18 months old, she is, my husband started feeding her everything like right away. And my son, that's 4, also very young, started eating. And you can tell, honestly, they're stronger, I think, from eating meat younger.
Mhm.
So that's,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say my other kids are not strong, but yeah, I notice a difference.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. But do you guys, but they do drink raw milk, right? Like you said, you're on a raw milk
Every
uh,
day, raw milk and raw
cleanse or
yogurt. I'm
diet
on a
right
raw
now.
milk fast right now. Yeah, just doing raw
Yeah.
milk. I haven't done any fasts in so long because I've been breastfeeding for 10 years consecutively, basically, or been pregnant. And so I just
Yeah.
was researching what kind of fast you can do while you're breastfeeding. And I read about the raw milk fast and how it can reset your microbiome. And if you're having trouble losing weight, and I have, having several kids in my 40s, I have had a hard time losing this like 25 to 30 pounds of baby weight. And so I thought maybe it would help to reset my microbiome, have a higher level of bifidobacteria, and therefore have a better um, ability to lose weight and process. So I'm trying it. I'm on day today. I did it all day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'm on the third day of nothing but raw milk, except for I did have coffee because I was up all night last night, but mostly only raw milk and coffee. And so, but my kids have raw milk, raw yogurt every single day. And 3 of them eat meat, and I have one daughter who doesn't eat meat. She's a vegetarian. She doesn't want to eat meat. She fully understands the whole thing. She even had a pig that she picked, and it was her pig, and she loved it, and it never could get pregnant. And we kept it for several years, and then when it was time, my husband said, "We're not going to just keep this pig forever, honey." She was like, "Okay," and she got up at 6 in the morning, and she went to the facility, the USDA facility, with my husband at 6 in the morning to drop her pig off, and she felt like that was important and she wanted to say goodbye. But so she fully understands all of the circle of life and everything, but she doesn't want to eat meat. And I'm not going to force her to eat meat. I don't eat meat. It would be crazy for me to force her.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's beautiful though. It's so great for kids to know about that circle of life, right? When you're, especially when they're raised on a farm. We have like a small farm. So my kids, saw us, like we slaughtered one pig on our property and a bunch of roosters. So I think it's just beautiful for them to know where their food comes from and, to see the importance of, like, okay, you know how the animals were raised and whatnot. But I love that you don't, force, obviously, we don't force our kids to eat what they don't want to eat.
And I do think at first I was torn about it. Like, what does it look like to have a, a kid that's getting exposed to that level of death and everything? But I think it's best. I think it's good for them to see. I think it's good to understand, excuse me, it's good to understand where their food comes from. And so, yeah, my kids have participated in, harvesting a deer, participated in harvesting a uh, pig and a goat and a sheep and chickens and all of it. And they're actually much more comfortable with it than I am. And they thank the animal, they thank God for the animal, and they be very reverent about it, but they do understand it fully.
Yeah. So, one last question before we wrap it up. Do you also, are some of the meats at your restaurant from your ranch?
So interesting that you should ask this question. So on our farm, the barn restaurant in Texas, which is on our ranch, which is different than the Sage Regen kitchens, the barn restaurant is all almost 100% um, protein from the ranch, like 90 something percent. And then sometimes we get some local venison and sometimes some charcuterie because we don't have the ability for charcuterie. But basically, everything else is from here. And then I hadn't found any pork that I really loved the system that was available in Los Angeles. And so I scaled up our pork program. So right now I have 100 pigs on the ground. The first ones are going to be ready to harvest in December or January. And now it looks like my restaurants are likely, well, I'm still praying for some kind of miracle, but basically the restaurants are struggling and I've scaled up my pork production for the restaurants. And now I don't know what I'm going to do. I have 100 pigs on the ground right now. So, and pregnant moms coming in the 2 months and 4 months and all of that. So I scaled this program and it's much bigger than I anticipated it being. And so I will have to figure something out if the restaurants do not succeed because we have a lot of pork. But the restaurant here on the ranch is all beef, pork, lamb, and goat and chicken eggs, all from the ranch. We don't serve chicken on the ranch because we don't harvest chickens from the ranch really, unless it's for chicken
Mhm.
soup or bone broth or whatever from the roosters. But we don't have meat birds at this time, but we may in the future.
Well,
And you
maybe
could buy,
if in
if anybody's
case.
interested, you could order on our website beef, lamb, pork on our website. And you can also get new right now, you could get a quarter of a goat, which we didn't have before. So you could just get the hind quarter or the forequarter of a goat if you like goat meat. And so we do have all of that goat, lamb, pork, and beef on our website.
That's great to know because I was about to ask you if we can buy directly from you. So I'm definitely going to have to
Yes.
check that out. And we're going to put everything in the show notes, how you can get in touch with Molly, how you can check out. Well, do you guys do farm tours too? I'm thinking because you
Yes, we
have a
do farm
like a
tours, the
restaurant at
restaurant.
the ranch. That's
Yes.
amazing. All right, anyone
We
in
do farm
Texas,
tours
go check it
and we
out.
do, yeah, every Saturday and Sunday, the restaurant's open. We're trying to get to where the restaurant's open more. And we have all these glamping and camping and tiny houses. And this house that I'm in is actually a rental house. My kids would be way too loud right now if we were in my house. So there's rental houses and you can stay. We do farm tours. You can even milk a cow into your breakfast coffee in the morning. You can, go on a farm tour. You can hold a baby pig. You can collect eggs, all types of experiences that you can do here.
Well, that sounds amazing. Maybe when we decide to drive through the country, we're going to have to stop by and check it out
For
when it
sure.
happens.
Definitely. Are you going to get an RV? We have an RV hookup. So if you have an RV, you can pull your RV in and hook up.
Yeah, we have to get an RV. We have a fifth wheel, but we don't all fit in the truck anymore with this. Once we had our fourth child, we couldn't fit in the truck. So might just have to rent an
I
RV if
honestly,
ever.
we have a C class and I love it. I love the kids on the couch back there. They can have their snacks and I love the RV with all the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a more comfortable way to travel, especially long distances. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much again for joining me.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry if it's the internet was like
Bye.
made our conversation weird and it's going to be a lot of editing for you. But thank you so much for having me. And it was an enjoyable conversation, even with the delay. So thank you so much
Yeah,
again for
it's
having me.
okay.
And is your baby due?
Mm. March.
Congratulations. And I wish you
Thank you.
easy and fast labor.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please click the subscribe button, share it with others, post about it in social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me or suggest topics, you can follow me on Instagram at Fatima Pagtakan or at The Wellness Rebel Show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.